Hey guys, Sam Movier here. I'm going to start this off with this is not copyright infringement under the Free Use Act, which I know nothing about. I just wanted to read the Twilight Saga to the fans like I've seen on YouTube. So here we go. I'm going to start from the beginning, from Bella's point of view, Twilight to Breaking Dawn. I'm going to start on Twilight. Here we go. Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. The inscription is, "For my big sister Emily, who without the enthusiasm for this story might still be unfinished. Thank you, Emily." Context. First sight. Number 3. This is the first part before the chapter begins. "But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eat of it, thou shalt die." Genesis 2:17. Preface. Never given much thought to how I would die, though I had reason enough in the last few months. But even if I had, I would not have imagined it like this. I stared without breathing across the long room into the dark eyes of the hunter, and he looked pleasantly back at me. Surely this was a good way to die, in the place of someone else, someone I loved. No believing. That thought ought to count for something. I knew that if I'd never gone to Forks, I wouldn't be facing death now. But terrified as I was, I couldn't bring myself to regret this decision. When life offers you a dream far beyond any expectation, it is not reasonable to grieve when it comes to an end. The hunter smiled in a friendly way as they sauntered forward to kill me. First sight. My mother drove me to the airport with the windows rolled down. It was 75 degrees in Phoenix. The sky was a perfect cloudless blue. I was wearing my favorite shirt, sleeveless, white eyelet lace. I was wearing it as a farewell gesture. My carry-on item was a parka. In the Olympic Peninsula in the northwest of Forks, Washington State, in the very small town named Forks, existed under constant cover of clouds and rain. On this incontestable town, more than any other place in the United States of America, it was from this town, in this gloomy, oppressant shade, that my mother escaped with me when I was only a few months old. It was in this town that I had been compelled to spend a month every summer till I was 14. That was the year that I finally put my foot down. These past 3 summers with my dad, Charlie, vacation with me in California for 2 weeks instead. It was to Forks that I now exiled myself in an action that I took with my greatest horror. I deserted Forks. I loved Phoenix. I loved the sun, the blistering heat. I loved the vigorous, sprawling city. "Bella," my mom said to me the last thousand times before I got on the plane, "you don't have to do this." My mom looked like me, except for the short hair and lifelines. I felt a spasm of panic as I stared into her wide, childlike eyes. How could I leave my loving, erotic, harebrained mother to fend for herself? Of course, she had Phil now, so the bills would probably get paid. There would even be food in the fridge, gas in her car, someone to call for if she got lost, but still. "I want to go," I lied. I've always been a bad liar, but I've been saying this lie so frequently that lately it sounded convincing. "Now, tell Charlie I said hi." "I will. I'll see you soon," she insisted. "You can come home whenever you want. I'll come right back as soon as you need me." But I could see the sacrifice in their eyes behind the promise. Don't worry about me, I urged. It'll be great. I love you, Mom. She hugged me tightly for a minute, and then I got on the plane and she was gone. It felt like the 4-hour flight to Phoenix to Seattle in a small plane to Port Angeles. And then an hour drives to Forks. Flying doesn't bother me. The hour in the car with Charlie, though, I was a little worried about. Charlie and I had fairly nice with the whole thing. He was fairly nice with the whole thing. He seemed genuinely pleased I was coming to live with him for the first time, with a degree of permanency. He already got me registered for high school, and he was going to get me a car. But it was sure awkward, Charlie. Neither of us was what anyone called verbose, and I didn't know what to say regardless. I knew he was more than a little confused about my decision, like my mother before, but I had a secret to my disdain for Forks. When I landed in Port Angeles, it was raining. I didn't see it as an omen. Unavoidable. I already said my goodbyes to the sun. Charlie was waiting for me in his cruiser and this was what I was expecting too. Charlie is police, Chief Swan, to the good people of Forks. My primary motivation behind buying a car, despite my scarce funds, was I refused to be driven around town in a car with red, white, and blue lights on the top. Nothing slows down traffic like a cop. Charlie gave me an awkward one-arm hug when I stumbled off the plane. It's good to see you, Bells, he said, smiling as he automatically caught steadying me. You haven't changed much. How's Renee? Mom's fine. It's good to see you, Dad. I've always wanted to call him. I wasn't allowed to call him Charlie to his face. I had only a few things with me. My Arizona clothes were too primitive for Washington. My mom and I had pooled our resources to supply me for my winter wardrobe, but it was scanty and easily fit into the trunk of the cruiser. I found a good car for you. Real cheap, he had announced when we strapped in. What kind of car? I was suspicious of the way he said, a good car for you. As opposed to just a good car. It's a truck actually, a Chevy. Where'd you find it? Do you remember Billy Black down at La Push? La Push being the tiny Indian reservation on the coast. No. He used to go fishing with us during the summer, Charlie prompted. That would explain why I didn't remember him. I do a good job of blocking painful, unnecessary things from my memory. He's in a wheelchair now, Charlie continued, when I didn't respond, so he can't drive anymore. He offered to sell me the truck for cheap. What year is it? I could see a change in expression, as this is the question he wasn't hoping I wouldn't ask. Billy's done a lot of work on the engine. It's only a few years old, really. I hope he didn't think little of me as to believe that I'd give up that easily. When did he buy it? He bought it in 1984, I think. Did he buy it new? Well, no. I think it was new in the early 60s or late 50s at the earliest. Dad, I really don't know anything about cars, and I wouldn't be able to fix it if anything went wrong. I couldn't afford a mechanic. Really, Bella, the thing runs great. They don't build them like that anymore. Thing is, I thought to myself, it had its possibilities. As a nickname, at the very least. How cheap is cheap? After all that, I was a part I could not comprehend on. Well, honey, I kind of already bought it for you as a homecoming gift. Charlie peeked sideways at me with a hopeful expression. Wow, free. You didn't need to do that, Dad. I was going to buy myself a car. I don't mind. I want to see you happy here. He was looking over the road when he said this. Charlie wasn't comfortable with expressing emotions out loud. I inherited that from him, so he was looking straight ahead as he responded. That's really nice, Dad. Thanks, I really appreciate it. No need to add that to me being happy in Forks is an impossibility. I didn't need to he didn't need to suffer along with me. I never looked a free truck in the mouth on the engine. Well, now you're welcome, he mumbled, embarrassed by my thanks. We exchanged a few more comments on the weather, which was wet, and was and that was pretty much our conversation. I stared out the window in silence. It was beautiful, of course. I couldn't deny that. Along with everything green, the trees, the trunks covered in moss, the branches hanging with a canopy of it, the ground covered in ferns, and the air drifted down greenly through the leaves. It was too green. Alien planet. Even though we made it to Charlie's, he still lived in the small 2-bedroom house he bought with my mother in the early days of their marriage. Those were the only kind of days that their marriage had, the early ones. There, parked on the street in front of the house that never changed, was my new to me truck. It was faded red color with a big rounded fender and butterous BLOUS cab. To my intense surprise, I loved it. I didn't know if it would run, but I could see myself in it. Plus, it was one of those solid iron affairs that never got damaged. The kind you see in a scene of the accident where the paint scratches the surface around those foreign cars it's destroyed. Wow, Dad, I love it. Thanks. Now my horrific day tomorrow would be just as less dreadful. I wouldn't be faced with the choice of walking 2 miles in the rain or accepting a ride in the cruiser. I'm glad you liked it, Charlie said gruffly, embarrassed again. It only took one trip to get all my stuff upstairs. I got the west bedroom that faces the front yard. The room was familiar. It had belonged to me since I was born. The wood floors, light blue walls, peaked ceiling, yellowed lace curtains around the window. These were all part of my childhood. The only thing that changed was switching the crib for a bed, adding a desk as I grew. The desk held a second-hand computer with a phone line. The modern stapled along the floor near the phone jack. This strip illusion for my mother so that we could stay in touch easily. The rocking chair from my baby days was still in the corner. There was only one small bathroom at the top of the stairs, which I'd have to share with Charlie. I was trying not to dwell on that fact too much. One of the best things about Charlie, he doesn't hover. He left me alone to unpack and get settled, a feat that would have been altogether impossible with my mother. It was nice to be alone, not to have to smile and look pleased and relieved as I stared dejection out the window at the sheer sheeting rain. I stared directed out the window at the sheeting rain, and the few tears escaped. I wasn't in the mood for a real crying gag. I would say bedtime when I would have to think about the upcoming morning. Forks High School had a frightening total of 3,057, now 58 students. There was more than 700 people in my junior class alone at home. All the kids had grown up together. Grandparents had been toddlers together. I would be the new girl in a big city. Curiously a freak. Maybe if I looked like the girl from Phoenix should, I could work it to my advantage. But physically, I never fit anywhere. I should be tan, sporty, blonde, volleyball player, or cheerleader perhaps. All the things that go with living in the sun. Instead, I have ivory skin without an excuse for blue eyes, red hair, despite the constant sun. I had always had a slender but soft, somehow obvious not an athlete. I did not have the necessary hand and eye coordination to play sports without humiliating myself and harming myself and anyone else who stood too close. When I finished putting my clothes in the old pine dresser, I took my bag of bathroom necessities and went to the communal bathroom to clean myself up after the day of travel. Looked at my face in the mirror, brushed through my tangled damp hair. Maybe if it was light, but already I looked swallower, unhealthy. My skin could be pretty. It was clear, mostly translucent looking. Translucent looking. Sorry. But it all depends on color. I had no color here. Facing my pallid reflection in the mirror, I was forced to admit I was lying to myself. It wasn't physically that I'd never fit in. I could find a niche in the school with 3,000 people. What were my chances here? I didn't really relate with people my own age. Maybe the truth was I didn't relate to people, period. Even my mother, who I was closer to than anyone else on the planet, was never in harmony with me, never on the same exact page. And I'm gonna have to stop there because I need to charge my phone. I will start on chapter 11 later. Talk to y'all later. So move you out.